In each of the following questions, a short passage is given with one of the lines in the passage missing and represented by a blank. Select the best out of the 5 answer choices given to make the passage complete and coherent, right? So this basically, we've been looking at questions of this type in the last couple of sessions, right? So we've been focusing on either the topic sentence is missing, or the closing sentence is missing, or a sentence in between is missing, right? Which means we need to look at some context before and some context after if the sentence in the middle is missing. So given this particular passage in front of us, we understand that the topic sentence is there, right? And the closing sentence is there. So here we need to figure out the sentence in the middle. Right, I have my topic sentence. So let's read. By calling for exempting unionized businesses from the minimum wage, unions are creating more incentives for employers to favor unionized workers over the non-unionized sort. So such exemptions strengthen their power, strengthen the power of the union workers. And then we have some gap. The next one is, once employers are obliged to pay the same minimum wage to both unionized and non-unionized labor, workers often see less reason to pay the dues to join a union. So it's almost like the closing sentence obviously is giving a solution, saying this is the attitude of the workers when both of them are getting, whether you're in a union or not, you're not part of a union, you get the same minimum wage. So it really doesn't matter. So workers often see less reason to pay the dues to join a union, because it doesn't matter anyways, whether I'm in the union or not the union, I'm getting the same wage, right? So let's understand the context first. Topic sentence is saying, by calling for exempting unionized businesses from the minimum wage, unions are creating more incentives for employers to favor unionized workers over the non-unionized sort. So basically, the guys who are forming a union, right, they want to have the upper hand. So what's the linking sentence here, which is addressing the topic sentence, but at the same time addressing the closing sentence as well. So we've understood both the contexts. Now let's read. A. High rates of unionization make minimum wage rules unnecessary, as collaborative wage setting achieves the flexibility goals of a low minimum wage and the fairness goals of a high one. Okay, right? Now this particular point, right, I'm looking at it. So let's read it slowly, right? Some of us might be like, huh? What did that mean? Right? So what is this sentence talking about? It's saying high rates of union. So basically it's addressing high rates of unionization. And it is saying, let's make this whole minimum wage rules unnecessary. Because the unions are anyway able to achieve what? Flexibility and fair wages, right? The wages are fair. But is that what it's talking about? Let's leave that in the parking lot. B. Workers who have no real alternative to employment in the unregulated shadows of the labor market are even more vulnerable to exploitation and abuse than workers with the legal right to take low wages. Now, this sentence is not really addressing either, because it's just discussing, you know, the case of where workers have a problem. Workers who are actually taking low wages, but they don't have the legal right. Right? It's addressing that. So this again is out of line. C. The labor ethos of worker solidarity seems hollow if non-union workers are underpriced by union workers and left unemployed or scrambling for unauthorized work. This again, I mean, if I look at the closing sentence, I already have a shift in attitude by the non-union workers. So C is just arguing what's happening with respect to the worker solidarity. right? It's just addressing one specific thing, again not relatable at all. When you say ethos, you're talking about the aura of it. A-U-R-A. The aura of something, you know, that's what ethos is, the ambience. So we're talking about the entire, the spirit in this particular case, right? It's the ethos of the whole non-union and unionized workers. So this, their community spirit. What is their attitude, or what are they trying to achieve? Right? Their character, their spirit, that's what it talks about. I mean, that's what ethos is. Where were we? D. This is useful for all the effort unions throw at raising the minimum wage. So, see, again, D is kind of directly addressing the topic sentence, because the topic sentence also is talking about that, right? About exempting unionized businesses from the minimum wage. So, this is useful because for all the effort unions throw at raising the minimum wage, laws for better pay have an awkward habit of undermining union clout. What's clout? Clout means power, influence, pull. So, it has addressed that, you know, the exemptions strengthen their power. So, there's reference made to that again. So, when laws for better pay is actually having an awkward habit of undermining union clout, their power or influence or pull. So, that's why once employers are obliged to pay the same minimum wage to both unionized and non-unionized labor, workers often see less reason to pay the dues to join a union. So, if you look at me, D is very close in terms of a linking between the topic sentence and the closing sentence, but let's not finalize anything. Let's look at E also. Unions have been demanding democratic values in the work culture, but on the contrary, they have been practicing dictatorial ways. Now, there's no reference made in terms of democratic values or dictatorial ways in either the topic sentence or the closing sentence. So, I can safely eliminate E in fact. So, calling for exempting unionized businesses from minimum wage, that is directly addressed with this is useful. What is useful? Calling for exempting unionized businesses from the minimum wage. That is useful because for all the effort unions throw at raising the minimum wage, laws for better pay have an awkward habit of undermining union clout. And they've already made, so I think if you don't understand the meaning of the word clout, you might miss out on this. Yeah, you might miss out on it. Pretty much to an extent, Namrata, usually there will be reference made to connecting. See, any author, a good author, always leaves some sort of clues, right? How do I, remember jumble sentence, what do? We look for keywords, repetitive words, right? Throughout this context. It's the same thing. Any author, any good author will always leave repetitive words, connecting words, which is a direct link to the next sentence. So, when you're practicing questions like this, which is basically passage completion, right? It's the same concept of jumble sentence, where I'm saying, boss, I'm looking for repetitive words, keywords throughout the context where there is a link. So, if I don't know the meaning of that word, I might miss out because power is addressed here in the topic sentence. Right? So, a little bit of vocabulary, understanding words, what meaning they bring in the context helps a lot. So, either you, see, this is a little more advanced than jumble sentence if you ask me, right? Because the sentences are longer, it's almost like a closed passage, but I have to figure out an entire sentence and not a word. So, the complexity is higher. Right? So, what they normally do is, let's say it's some factory, right? Cotton industry factory or whatever the factory is. So, in that factory, there are some workers who get together and they form a union. And they approach the employers and they say, boss, right, we are in charge. We'll take care of everything. Any problem, right? You need to kind of take care of it. So we'll make sure there is no strike, whatever. I'm just giving you a basic understanding of how unions work in a factory. The union guys obviously want to create more incentives. Incentives is additional pay, extra pay, right? So they want the employers to favor them over people who are not part of the union. There are some people who don't want to be a part of the union. They are happy doing their job, coming regularly and going back, right? They don't want any extra stuff or whatever. They are content. But so by these guys doing what they are doing, approaching the employers, they are trying to strengthen their power. But this is useful for all the effort unions throw at raising the minimum wage. Laws for better pay have an awkward habit of undermining union clout, meaning there are certain laws, there are certain regulations that the industry or the employers or the labor thing put in place to check so that certain people don't have the edge or don't have that power. So the employers need to be the power of authority, not workers who join a union, right? So once employers are obliged to pay the same minimum wage to both unionized and non-unionized labor, this problem will be solved. Workers often see less reason to pay the dues to join a union. So they are forced to pay extra to be a part of the union. So that can be eliminated if the employers don't favor people in the union and give minimum wage to both of them, both the classes. Right? So that's what the context is about. So this you need to understand. You must have watched movies, right? They always bring the clash of, people in the union having a strike and, pressurizing other workers to join in, things like that. So anyway, the answer for this is D.